The town of Mayberry was a cruel joke. It was a place where hope had long since rusted, much like the forgotten cars in the junkyard at its edge. In the middle of this decay lived Eliza Thorne. 32 years old, her legs withered by childhood illness, she was confined to a wheelchair. Eliza wasn't defined by her disability. She was an artist, her hands creating vibrant beaded jewelry that glittered with the color Mayberry lacked. Her small house was a fortress of normalcy, anchored by the routine of her online business. Directly across the street, the Iron Horse Bar stood, the clubhouse of the Nightfall Nomads, a biker gang whose members were all leather, tattoos, and menacing chrome. Most people in Mayberry saw only demons. Eliza, however, saw the subtle, unwritten code, the absence of drug dealing on their immediate block, the quiet way they ignored the town's small-time drama. They were the shadows of the law, not its subjects. Today, the usual deep rumble of their Harleys was interrupted by a desperate, shattering sound, the smash of glass from Eliza's back window. Rex, the Reaper Grogan, a local drug dealer, had crossed a line. Recently evicted from the house next to Eliza's, his simmering rage had found a new target in her quiet independence. His guttural shouts, fueled by cheap liquor and malice, echoed through the alley. "Hey, cripple, still peddling your pretty trinkets, huh? Too good for Mayberry?" Eliza tried to ignore the taunts, her hands gripping the armrests of her wheelchair. But the shouts grew closer, and then came a chilling hiss of air escaping rubber. Rex had punctured her front tire, the only thing that gave her mobility. "Can't go anywhere now, can you, wheelchair queen? Nowhere to run when the Reaper comes knocking." Rex's laughter was chilling. Eliza grabbed her phone, her fingers trembling, but before she could dial, the true horror began. The sound of splintering wood as Rex started kicking at her back door. Her world, already small, was shrinking into a cage. Inside the Iron Horse Bar, the air was thick with smoke and the growl of classic rock. Hammer Johnson, the chapter president, was a monolith of muscle and scars, seated at his corner booth. With him were Razor Mike, his quiet second-in-command, and Doc Silas, the gang's medic. The music was loud, the conversation low, until a young boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, walked hesitantly through the front door. He wore a patched-up sweater, and a few crumpled, dirty dollars were clutched in his hand. He approached the bar, scanning the 20 hardened men, until his eyes landed on Hammer. The boy cleared his throat, his voice barely a whisper against the sudden, jarring silence that had fallen over the entire bar. "Will you kill the man for me?" he asked, holding out the money. "He broke my sister's legs, and I don't have much money, but I need him gone." The sudden silence was absolute. Every biker froze. A pool cue stopped mid-strike, a beer bottle held motionless mid-air. Hammer, though his expression remained fixed, was the first to move. He slowly knelt down, bringing his massive frame level with the boy. "What's your name, son?" "Billy?" "I'm Billy. My sister is Eliza Thorne. She's in the wheelchair." He pointed vaguely toward the street. "The Reaper is breaking her door. He broke her wheel and she can't get away." Razor Mike, who missed nothing, shot up and darted to the window, his eyes confirming the dark lurking shadow near Eliza's house. Hammer, however, didn't move. He looked at the boy, then at the crumpled money. He wasn't thinking about the threat. He was thinking about the implication. He stood up slowly, his height immediately dominating the bar again. "This kid walked in here," Hammer said, his voice quiet but echoing like a struck bell. "He came to the most dangerous place in Mayberry, willing to pay us every penny he had to save his sister." He looked at his men, his eyes dark. "That means the police won't help. That means the town is too cowardly to intervene, and that means this girl is truly alone." Doc Silas slammed his fist on the bar, the sound sharp and final. We don't prey on the innocent, Hammer, and we damn sure don't let others do it on our turf. That man violated our territory." Hammer nodded. He walked to the jukebox and cut the power. The sudden absolute silence of the Iron Horse bar was the declaration of war. Hammer grabbed his helmet and walked out. Razor and Doc were already mounted. Within 60 seconds, the street was alive with noise, the synchronized roar of 20 Harley-Davidson engines firing up, filling the narrow street with a suffocating, menacing promise. Rex Grogan, moments from smashing in Eliza's back door, froze. He heard the sound. Not one engine, but a full cavalry charge, closer than any police siren could ever be. He recognized the sound of a threat far bigger and deadlier than himself. The first bike, Hammer's black chopper, skidded to a halt directly in front of Eliza's house. The V formation of nomads filled the entire street behind him, their headlights fixed like predator eyes on the back alley where Rex stood. Hammer dismounted, his shadow looming large. He walked toward the back of the house, his pace slow, deliberate, and terrifying. "Rex Grogan," Hammer's voice was a low growl cutting through the idling engines. "You just violated the one rule that keeps men like you alive in this town." He stopped at the broken door, his back to the frightened Eliza inside. He reached down to the ground and picked up the piece of broken glass Rex had thrown earlier. Hammer looked at the glass, then at Rex, who was visibly shaking. "You tried to break in. You tried to disable her. This is our jurisdiction now." Rex, caught between the splinters of the door and the wall of steel that was the Nightfall Nomads, finally broke. He was no longer the Reaper. He was just a terrified petty criminal caught by the wrong people. The moment of confrontation was set. The Nomads were here not for chaos, but to enforce a code the town wished they had. The standoff was official, and the battle for Eliza's safety and the Nomads' honor had just begun.
The street was silent again, the thunder of the engines having settled into a menacing, unified thrum. Rex Grogan didn't need to be told to run. The sheer weight of 24 eyes fixed on him was punishment enough. He scrambled back into the alley and disappeared, humiliated but seething with the promise of return. Hammer ignored the bully's retreat. His attention was now fixed on the house and the person inside. He turned to Razor Mike, who had already calmly dismounted his bike. "Razor, take 4 men. Find his car. Any cash, any drugs, it's impounded. Any weapons, they're confiscated. If he returns, he won't be financed." Razor grinned, a flash of white teeth in the dark. "Consider it done, boss." This was the Nomads' brand of justice, disarmament through confiscation. They didn't beat Rex. They systematically dismantled his status, his livelihood, and his perceived power in the town. Hammer walked to the back door, stepping over the broken splinters. He saw Eliza still frozen in her chair, the small ornamental axe gripped uselessly in her lap. "The immediate threat is gone. We need to secure the perimeter." Eliza found her voice, shaky but clear. "Why are you doing this? The police won't even come down this street." Hammer glanced at the broken wheel, then back at her. "The boy paid us to handle a problem the law ignored. The price of that service isn't just taking down the bully, it's restoring the sanctuary. We don't take cash for this kind of job, but we follow the code." He pointed to her broken window and the ruined tire. "He damaged property on our turf. We fix it. Then we collect the real payment, respect for the territory." What the town of Maybury saw next, peeking through drawn curtains and blinds, was not the anticipated gang war, but a bizarre, highly organized maintenance operation. Hammer designated Doc Silas as the field commander inside the house. Doc, ignoring the grime on the floor, knelt expertly by the wheelchair. "Ripping the valve stem," he noted, his movements precise despite his massive tattooed hands. "A quick fix won't hold. We need a replacement tire and tube. This is a special lightweight racing chair. Can't use a regular bicycle tire." Two nomads, former contractors named Wrench and Gravel, immediately began cleaning up the glass. They retrieved tools, cut fresh plywood from the Iron Horse's supply shed, and within minutes, the back window was cleanly boarded up. It looked less like an invasion and more like efficient disaster relief. Doc soon returned from the bar with a proper new wheel assembly. He worked with the meticulousness of a surgeon, replacing the wheel, checking the bearings, and carefully aligning the brake. Eliza watched, tears finally starting to track paths through the grime on her cheeks. I don't understand," she whispered. Hammer leaned against the doorframe, his colossal frame blocking the night. "Most people look at the leather and the bikes and think chaos. We're not chaos. We're a system, a hierarchy. We have rules. The problem with Rex is he thought he could use his chaos to rule. Our job is to show him the order is stronger." He looked at the new wheel. "You need to be able to move. That wheel is your freedom. He took that. We give it back." Razor Mike returned, dumping a small pile of Rex's seized possessions onto Eliza's kitchen counter, a handful of dirty cash, Rex's phone, and a small lockbox containing narcotics. "Cleaned out, boss. He's broke and he's burned." Hammer looked at the items. The drugs go to the river. The phone gets thrown in. The money? That's yours, Eliza. Compensation for the damage. The nomads had restored the order, but they knew the storm was coming. Rex Grogan was desperate and predictable. He'd rally his outside contacts for a full-scale counterattack. Hammer gathered Doc, Razor, and two other trusted men in Eliza's living room. The small space had been transformed into a temporary command center. "Rex is calling his cousin, his crew, whoever. They'll hit us before dawn. We need eyes outside the perimeter." He then looked directly at Eliza, who was watching them with new, steady confidence. She had been their captive, but now she was their unconventional asset. "Eliza, we need to know the second they enter town. We can't let them mass up. We need to intercept them clean, away from the town before they can get here." Eliza pushed her new, perfectly functioning chair to a small table holding an old desktop computer. "I can do that," she said, tapping the screen. "I run my business on this. It's connected to all the forgotten unsecured Wi-Fi and old security cameras the town forgot existed. The local police don't even know this network exists." She pulled up a crude, low-resolution map of Mayberry, highlighting the two main entry roads. "I can give you real-time surveillance. I can tell you how many vehicles are coming and where they park to start their hike. You don't have to wait for them to come to you." Hammer stared at the map, then at the woman. The biker gang, armed with muscle and steel, had been outclassed by a young disabled woman armed with forgotten technology. A wide, genuine smile, a terrifying sight that stretched across his scars, spread across Hammer's face. "Perfect, Eliza. You're running the eye tonight. Stay off the windows. The war just moved to the roads." The Nightfall nomads, once outlaws, were now the defenders, turning a house of vulnerability into a tactical stronghold. The final confrontation was set to play out on the dark highways leading into Mayberry.
The pre-dawn hours were the coldest and darkest. Inside the command center, Eliza's living room, the only light came from the flickering desktop screen and the tense glow of the nomad's cigarettes. Eliza, now completely focused and calm, sat at the computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She wasn't just viewing security feeds. She was navigating a forgotten network of municipal webcams and old business monitors that the local authorities had long abandoned. She had truly become the Eye. "Movement!" Eliza called out, her voice sharp with adrenaline. "Two vehicles entering the town perimeter on Route 12, a black pickup and a rusty sedan. 4 men in the truck, 3 in the sedan. They're parking near the abandoned quarry, a 3-mile hike to the house." Hammer glanced at the crude map on the screen. "They're trying to hit us from the rear, thinking we're pinned down. They don't know we have an early warning system." He looked at Razor Mike and Doc Silas. Razor, you take the 4 quickest bikes and intercept the pickup on the quarry trail. No shots, no drawn weapons. Tactical breakdown only. Doc, you take 4 bikes and stop the sedan on Route 12. Immobilize it. We need to send them a clear message. The boundary is closed. Hammer turned to Eliza. You stay online. If they shift course, warn us. Billy, you stay with Eliza. The remaining nomads waited with Hammer, securing the immediate perimeter. The plan was not to fight a chaotic street battle, but to use the superior speed of the Harleys and the intelligence from the eye to break the enemy's momentum before they could even get close. The interception was executed with surgical speed and discipline that shocked even the hardened nomads. Razor Mike and his crew, moving like dark ghosts in the brush, cut off the black pickup truck on the narrow quarry trail. They didn't speak. They simply formed a wall of chrome and leather, forcing the truck to a halt. When the 4 reinforcements tumbled out, ready for a brawl, they were met not with fists, but with a terrifying stillness. Razor and his men simply pointed at the ground, then pointed back down the road they came from. One of the thugs, fueled by meth and rage, lunged at Razor. Razor didn't retaliate with a strike. He simply parried the punch and drove his elbow into the solar plexus, dropping him instantly without breaking skin. The message was clear. This wasn't a fair fight. It was a demonstration of overwhelming force and control. They took the keys and watched the remaining 3 men retreat into the darkness. Meanwhile, Doc Silas and his crew performed a swift immobilization. They boxed in the rusty sedan on Route 12. Doc, with a heavy-duty wrench, calmly and methodically smashed the engine block until the car was a smoking, non-functional piece of scrap. When the 3 occupants tried to flee, Doc looked them in the eye. Rex Grogan started a fire he can't put out. This is the price of his friend's involvement. This car stays here. You don't. Walk home. By the time the sun began to paint the sky a pale, fearful gray, both groups returned to Eliza's house. They hadn't fired a single shot or incurred a single injury, yet the enemy was completely scattered and demoralized.
As the sun rose, Rex Grogan finally returned, finding his friends gone and his vehicles destroyed or impounded. He returned alone to Eliza's house, fueled by one final desperate burst of blind fury, screaming threats. He found Hammer waiting for him on the porch, alone, polishing his helmet. "It's over, Rex," Hammer said, his voice quiet. "You tried to bring a war to this town. We ended it before it reached the street." He pointed to the newly repaired wheel on Eliza's chair, which sat gleaming near the window. "Your power is gone. Your money is gone. Your friends are gone. Your debt is paid in shame and retreat." Rex, realizing the vast quiet conspiracy against him, finally broke. He sank to his knees, his will destroyed by the nomads' cold, efficient discipline. They didn't need to kill him. They had simply demonstrated that they could. Rex was arrested later that morning by the local police, who finally showed up once the street was safe, thanks to an anonymous tip about drug activity. Rex's confiscated lockbox. Rex and his crew quickly skipped town or accepted long prison sentences. Eliza Thorne didn't stay in Mayberry long. The nomads had restored her freedom, not just by repairing her wheel, but by showing her that true strength wasn't confined to a single image. She used the confiscated money to move to a larger city where her beaded jewelry thrived, and she finally found the anonymity and peace she craved. The Nightfall nomads went back to the Iron Horse, and the town returned to its routine, but something had fundamentally changed in Mayberry. They still feared the nomads, but now a flicker of respect, or at least a profound understanding, had taken root. Years later, a new young member of the nomads, Rhodey, asked Hammer why they risked everything for a woman in a wheelchair. Hammer was polishing his chrome. He said, not looking up, "The town ignores the weak. The law moves slow. We move fast. When someone that small, that alone, is willing to scrape together every last dollar just to stop a bully, that's the line of honor. We protect that line. That's the only law that truly matters." The Nightfall nomads were outlaws, yes, but that day, they had proven that sometimes the ones who live outside society's rules are the only ones capable of enforcing its most essential code of conduct.